Assalamu alaikum. Today on Nulan Academy, we discuss the Bimaristans, an innovation of faith. If you benefit, please support by subscribing and sharing as a sadaqah. We're going to be exploring a really foundational concept in the history of compassionate healthcare, the Bimaristans. Now, this is so much more than just an old word for a hospital. It's an idea that truly fundamentally changed how the world thinks about caring for the sick. It set a whole new standard of compassion, and it was rooted directly in faith. So let's dive into its origins and its incredible impact.
Okay, so first things first. To really appreciate the scale of this innovation, we have to understand the world it was born into. Let's start with Section 1, a world without care. I want you to just pause for a moment and really try to picture this. Imagine being sick, truly ill, and there's just no hospital to go to, no emergency room, no trained doctors on call, no system in place at all to make sure you receive care with dignity. It's a pretty scary thought, right? But for most of human history, that was the reality. You see, that harsh reality was defined by a pretty chaotic approach to health. Healthcare, if you could even call it that, was basically a privilege, not a right. Your ability to get any kind of treatment was tied directly to how much money you had. There were no universal medical standards, no ethical codes to protect patients. And the very idea of organized professional nursing, it just didn't exist. The tragic result of all this? The sick, especially the poor, were often feared and simply abandoned. Humanity desperately needed a new way, a solution built on compassion.
And this desperate need is what paved the way for our second section, an innovation of faith. The change that came wasn't just medical, it wasn't just social, it was fundamentally spiritual. The real catalyst for this revolution was a profound shift in perspective, one that was rooted in theology.
And this is the core principle right here. Islam introduced what was, for its time, a truly radical idea, that every single human life has an intrinsic, sacred value. And this wasn't just some nice thought, it was a divine command that reshaped society's responsibilities. It meant that everyone mattered, the poor, the stranger, the sick, everyone.
This principle led early Muslim leaders and scholars to ask a very profound question, one that would completely reframe healthcare. The goal wasn't just to help people out of simple kindness. The question was bigger. How can we serve Allah, may He be glorified and exalted, by creating a real, sustainable, and dignified system for His creation? See, a question like that demands more than just charity. It demands an institution.
And that institution is what we're going to explore now in Section 3, inside the Bimaristans. This was the brilliant, practical answer to that deeply spiritual question.
So let's get a clear definition. What was the Bimaristan? Well, in essence, it was a public hospital. But here's what made it so revolutionary. It was explicitly free for everyone, no matter their wealth, their religion, or their background. Its entire foundation was built on the Islamic principles of rahmah, mercy, and khidmah, service.
And these institutions were, they were just astonishingly advanced. This wasn't some simple clinic. The Bimaristans had specialized wards to keep different diseases from spreading. It had a professional staff of trained doctors and nurses. And get this, they kept medical records for each patient, a practice that was way ahead of its time. They even had their own in-house pharmacies and integrated medical schools. They created a complete ecosystem of care. In so many ways, this was the blueprint for the modern hospital system we know today.
To really grasp the innovation here, it's so important to see the difference between charity and a system. Individual acts of charity are beautiful and absolutely essential. They relieve an immediate need. But a system, which is what the Bimaristan was, creates a permanent foundation for public health. It provides consistent, professional care that isn't dependent on the mood of a single donor, but is an organized public institution, there for everyone.
So why the high standards? Why all the discipline, the record-keeping, the round-the-clock care? Because the entire thing was framed by this incredibly powerful spiritual motivation. Healing wasn't just a job. Serving humanity was seen as a profound act of worship, of ibadah. And that belief drove the excellence and the ethics that came to define the Bimaristans.
Now, an incredible model like this wasn't going to stay contained. And in Section 4, we'll look at its lasting impact, a legacy for humanity.
This powerful idea spread, and it spread fast. The first major Bimaristans were founded in Baghdad way back in the 8th century. Over the next few hundred years, they flourished all across the Muslim world. Then, European travelers, especially during the time of the Crusades and after, were absolutely stunned by what they saw. Their detailed accounts of these organized, clean, professional institutions directly influenced the eventual development of hospitals back in Europe. It truly was a gift to the world.
And finally, let's go beyond the history, beyond the structure, and get to the very heart of the matter in our final section, Section 5, the spirit of service.
This right here, this captures the theology that powered the entire model. For the Muslims who built and worked in these Bimaristans, healing was an amana, a sacred trust from Allah. May He be glorified and exalted. Acquiring medical knowledge wasn't just for a career, it was a sacred responsibility. And providing care? That was a direct expression of one's iman, of one's faith. The ultimate goal was never ever profit. It was to seek the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jalla.
And that brings us to this powerful synthesis. The Bimaristan stands as a testament to this truth. It proves that when rigorous science is guided by divine mercy, it serves humanity in the best way possible. And when faith is translated into practical, organized service, it finds its truest expression. The two were never meant to be separate.
So, we end with this question, a reflection for all of us. The legacy of the Bimaristan isn't just a dusty footnote in a history book, it's a living challenge. They saw a need, and guided by their faith, they built systems that healed humanity. So in our own time, with our own challenges, how will we answer that same call to serve?
Presented and created by Nuran Studio.